How's it going, everybody? This is Rob Novakast back with another video, and with this one, this is, I guess, for anything, especially for a review, so to speak. I'll be doing a series of reviews that are just going to be following a particular theme, at least going through a series, kind of like what I did with Spider-Man. So, I guess, to plainly say, for the next few reviews, I'll be focusing on one particular franchise and going through almost every single movie that has been related to that franchise. And to an extent, one I thought that I talked about so far, but apparently I haven't. So without further delay, why don't we go ahead and get started? We'll be talking about the Alien franchise. And starting us off, we'll be talking about Alien, which was released in 1979. For those who don't know, the movie Alien was directed by Ridley Scott, written by Dan O'Bannon for the screenplay, and the story itself was written by Ronald Shozet. Now, to a degree, the movie itself, as well as the franchise, has been an influence when it comes down to horror, especially when it comes down to the design of the creature as well as the aesthetic that has been presented to us for this film, or at least when it comes down to environment, characters, and again, the creature. So, without further delay, why don't we go ahead and get right into it, starting off with the story. Now, to kind of briefly go over the story, or at least kind of like this, just summarizing the story itself, we follow a crew on this ship called the Nostromo, who come across a beacon of unknown origin. They go to find it when one of the crew members is attacked by a parasitic organism, which then impregnates him, killing the host as well as creating a almost perfect hunting machine. And the story itself is basically each and every one of these crew members trying to survive, or at the very least attempt to destroy the creature, where only by the very end of it, only one survives. Now, with it being as old as it is, a lot of people already know who survives, but to a degree, for those who haven't, I implore you to watch the film because it's actually really good. Now, I will mention too that when it comes down to my review, I'll also be bringing up the director's cut, because to an extent, especially for the director's cut, it kind of goes into more detail of how terrifying this creature is, with especially with one particular scene that was unfortunately taken out of the film. But all in all, the story itself is really cool, and usually with story I also kind of lump setting into it. And I think a lot of people have described, the setting as, a haunted house film, but to an extent in a place where you really can't escape. Because that was, I guess, going over other haunted house films, that's what a lot of issues with haunted house films were, is people who literally have a ghost in their house could literally just leave. Whereas for Alien, you can't. You're unfortunately in this very, very difficult situation where you either die from the creature, or you more likely will get shot into space and freeze, or however more likely your body will be destroyed through, the vacuum of space. All in all, it is a very terrifying situation. And to a degree, the story itself is done really well. Now, it was also brought up that allegedly there were several deleted, or at least, I guess, to a certain degree, alleged endings to the story, of making the story itself even more bleak than it already was. But I'm kind of happy with the ending that they gave us for Alien itself, because it is honestly it shows that there was some sign of hope for one of our characters. Not much, because unfortunately they're like with you know this nightmare, it unfortunately caused a lot of damage, both emotional, expensive, or economical, emotional, economical, and physical damage. So, um, all in all, it's story wise perfect. I will say it is perfect when it comes down to how the story was told. So, casting and characters is limited. And I say that because there's like literally 10 names, especially looking at IMDb, 10 names listed for casting, or at least the top casting anyway. But I guess to start us off, we have Sigourney Weaver playing Ripley, Tom Skerritt playing as Dallas, John Hurt playing as Kane, Veronica Cartwright as Lambert, Harry Dean Stanton as Brett, Ian Holm as Ash, Yafet Koto as Parker, Balahi Badejo as one of the aliens, or as the alien, Helen Horton as the mother AI, and Eddie Powell as, I guess, uncredited alien. And again, I'm looking this up at IMDb. Now, each individual, I mean, to an extent, I can understand why it's a small cast. Because let's face it, they're on a ship. There's not going to be a lot of people, especially when it comes to crew, especially with the aliens including. All in all, this was, especially when it comes to casting, is done really well. Sigourney Weaver, who I think at that time was like kind of an upstart when it comes down to acting, did a really job with her role. She played a kind of nonsensical second in command who is by the books when it comes down to roles. Like, for instance, when there's a moment of somebody trying to break quarantine, she is very keen into not breaking quarantine or quarantine procedures when it comes down to, you know, involvement or any, I guess, contact with a, I guess, alien organism to a degree. Uh, Tom Skirt playing Dallas, he was you know, the captain, the first in command. John Hurt, unfortunately, being the victim, the first victim of the alien. Veronica Lambert, or Veronica Cartwright. I don't know why I call her Veronica Lambert, but Veronica, kind of playing as an officer. Um, at first, not very like very emotional character, especially more so near the very end. Harry Dean Stanton, I didn't care much for. Very like there was not a lot of dialogue with this character. He was, I guess, quote unquote, one of the mechanics. Ian Holmes playing as the science officer, as well as wanting to preserve the alien and try to bring it back to their home base. Which there's a lot more to him, which I'm not going to go into detail if you've never watched the film. Uh, Yafit Koto playing Parker, again another one of the mechanical officers, who is really cool towards the end, especially when he has to hold his ground against the alien. Not much I can say about Helen Horton, who again is the AI, but the people that play the alien did a really good job, especially with uh, Balahi Badejo. I mean, what they did, especially when it comes down to like design and, or if anything, like just the movements of the alien, they did really good. There's one particular scene which I don't know if it was intentional or not, or like what they were going for, but there's a scene near the very end where the it just looks like that the alien, he's like holding still and he's like sliding towards the floor, and it looked very unnatural. But all in all, it was creepy, and I loved it. All in all these actors did really good with their roles, and a lot of them, at least one of them, got a chance to be in several sequels. So it was it was a win-win, especially with kind of when it comes to casting and characters. So I'm gonna be perfectly honest, and this is just a preference for me, especially when it comes down to films. I've always enjoyed films between the 70s and 80s because at that point a lot of films were going, or at least using, practical effects. And this is the case with Alien, or at least the first Alien, where to a degree a lot of it is practical effects. There is no CGI, nothing that particularly crazy. Everything is there, you can see it. It looks real to a certain degree, and that's what kind of brings in the terror for a lot of people, because at that point you see that it looks like it doesn't look digital or anything like that. You can actually it looks like something that you would literally see in real life. All in all, I will say, especially when it comes down to, like, because there are moments where you're seeing the ship move around. I will admit there are moments where it's very slow, which I kind of feel that that's the point, especially when it comes down to, uh, I guess if anything, how a lot of the movie feels like. I guess if anything, the movie itself feels like a slow burn till we finally get to the alien. But all in all, the movement of everything is just perfect to a very very large degree. And speaking of, and actually going into effects further, the alien, which this, as a lot of people know, the designs for the aliens are based on sketches from H.R. Geiger, which is haunting to say the least. And the final draft for this particular alien was just breathtaking. It was just phenomenal of what they did to create this creature. Especially when it comes down to, like, if you take a close look of the costume itself, you can see all the detail and what they put into it. So effects, spot on. I enjoy it. It looks good. It looks real, to say the least. So not much to say about music, only for a lot of the score. It's very slow and eerie, especially with the intro theme, or the main title theme to this particular film, which honestly really helps the tone of a lot of what we see for this particular film. From the ship Nostromo, or Nostromo, I should say, floating through the dark void of space, to coming across the giant ship that was carrying the signal, which also had the jockeys, or the dead space jockeys. All in all, music itself is particularly good, and I enjoy it. Now, I will admit that in certain moments, especially when it comes down to any sort of sound design or music, it does. I mean, obviously, it starts ramping up a little bit for when it starts getting serious. Which, honestly, when it needs music, it uses it. When it doesn't, it doesn't. Which is perfect. The people that worked on the music as well as sound design did an excellent job, to say the least. So I think it's safe to say that the film itself is excellent. Story, as well as setting is, perfect, especially when it comes down to, again, a kind of remark towards the haunted house genre of films. Characters themselves, although limited, do their parts, or at least act their parts, extremely well. Effects, when it comes down to, the nitty gritty, is all practical to a very, very large degree, and gives us a sort of realism, or if anything, the fantasy of realism in this particular movie. And to top it off, music as well as sound design, when it is needed. For calm moments, it is calm, but when it needs to ramp up, then it gives us actual emotion. So, when it comes down to it, Alien is just as the alien itself, the xenomorph, it is a perfect organism in of itself. And to a degree has been the staple for a lot of, I guess you could say, copycat films that has been presented to us over the years. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and give Alien the 1990 or 1979. I don't know why I was screwing up on that, but 1979 movie, 10 out of 10. It is, again, and still is, the perfect example of a good alien movie. And with that, that was my review of Alien from 1979. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, links are in the description down below, as well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Rob Novakast signing off. Have a good one. Take care. And I will see you guys in the next video. Ciao.